विशू 2 मिनिटं इकडे ना बाळा. केबल काढायची लावून सायनीतून केबल काढायची काढायची. लक्षात
Is it charging? Because that loud. Today I shampoo.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another webinar from School of Market Studies. And I, Vineet Bolinchkar, am your host for the topic Know Thy Promoter. Over the last few months, as the market meltdown happened, we've seen us getting bombarded with a lot of stocks which have collapsed very sharply. Take the case of Vakrangi, uh, take the case of uh, any other stock for that matter, 1% beverages. They have all got hammered very badly, and it has been uh, primarily due to the fact that the promoters were cheat promoters. They were playing a fast one on investors, and huge losses were incurred in the market cap. Imagine Vakrangi, which was a 50,000 crore company, got washed away from a price of as high as 800 down to double to triple digits in a matter of no time. So, given this kind of mayhem that can be created in markets, it is very, very important that you protect your capital. And the only way that that can be done is from taking up due cognizance of the people who run the business. It is very important to know that a business is by the people, for the people, and it is people who run businesses, isn't it? So it is very important that we focus on the promoters, the management, and the employees who run the companies. So without much ado, let's get ahead with this presentation. I hope you do enjoy it. And okay, so uh, just now in the introductory talk, I spoke to you about two factors that make a business, that a successful organization. One is a business, and the other is a promoter. And we can actually put this entire spectrum into a matrix where we have where we gauge promoter quality and we gauge business quality. So in that we've created a matrix of four squares. You can have promoters who are good. For example, the Tata groups are very ethical promoters. They've always worked for shareholder value creation. And then there are bad promoters like just the ones which you mentioned earlier. Uh, you can have good businesses and bad businesses. And when we say that a business is bad, what we mean is that it is not genuinely necessarily bad, but it could be going through a very, very challenging phase, isn't it? So, if you take the case of a good business having a great promoter, or let us take the example of TCS, right? So, a TCS is a very, very good management with a very, very uh, and in a very sweet spot being the leader in its business. So one starts wondering if one can make multi-bagger gains from this stock. Now, in this stock, the entire valuation game has been deciphered. It has been re-rated by the market, and what you will get out here is a steady compounding story based on the earnings and not on the valuation re-rating, because most of it is already built into price. So, where are going to be the opportunities that lie? But before that, let us look at what you should be doing with a company like PCJ or Manpasan Beverages. So essentially, they absolutely qualify as a bad business and a bad promoter quality. So any business that you're looking at has got both these characteristics. You should avoid these businesses at any cost. So you are left with the two other quadrants. One is that a business is of a great quality, but there is questions on the integrity of the promoter. For example, let's take the case of Raymond. And then you have a business like steel, which until recently was not doing well, although steel is doing very well right now. But let us say a few uh, quarters ago, steel was not a great industry to be in. Yeah, steel was not a great industry to be in, and it was plagued by oversupply. Stocks were running at lows, and the very nature of the industry was under question in India, right? So, if you can invest in a business which is just about to be turned around, right, and you have a great management in the driver's seat out there, these are the two types of businesses where you can see multi-bagger gains, because not only will you gain from a valuation improvement like a re-rating, but also where you will also gain from the uh, earnings quality improving. So these are the sweet spots for identifying major re-ratings. So we are looking for businesses which are under the threshold, or we are looking for great businesses where the promoters are a little under the threshold, right? Mark you, in today's time, this would mean extremely uh, dangerous, because what you will be looking for is you will be in a carnage which is happening in the market right now. There is a affinity, or there is a uh, abject negativity towards even the slightest promoter quality. But it is there where there are good businesses and promoters who are not that good, but who are looking to turn around, can really create value. Let's take the case of Raymond. Okay, Raymond was always known to be a great brand in the country. Okay, 75-year-old brand, great brand recall. But if you notice, up to a few years ago, the company was not doing well. It was always had issues of corporate governance. There were questions of siphoning of funds, promoters running their business as a entrepreneur company, and so on and so forth. But if you notice over the last few months, what has happened is that Gautam Singhania has made the all the right noises. Uh, they have got a professional on board. An entire team was recruited, recouped, which were absolutely professional. Okay, then he moved. He moved away from the day-to-day operations. He just remains a chairman, and he has always been treating about market cap creation. Further, he has gone and increased his stake in the company. Okay, so what we are now getting out here to see is that the people running the business, the owner, promoter, and the operator of the business are getting segregated, and that led to a substantial re-rating of the business, right? So this is how we would say that a business which is a fantastic business, but with a promoter having a slightly dubious character. Earlier, I mentioned to you about a business which was not doing that well, and then suddenly it takes off. Or for that matter, let us take the case of Asian Paints. It's an extremely high quality promoter, and in a business which is just seeing cyclical lows right now. Okay, uh, anytime the cycle can turn up, things are very strong, and hence this would classify as a business with a good promoter quality, but going through slight upheavals in business. So here, not only will you gain from the earnings quality, but also due to a re-rating possibly happening here. So in multi-bagger stock selection, it is absolutely important to know who's running the business and how well this is done. And this should be your starting point, or not the ending point of the analysis. So if you are getting into a situation where you don't trust the management, absolutely get out after considering this four quadrant matrix. The stock promoter selection process should start with who are the promoters or owners running the business, who is running the business, whether there's a professional management in place. We'll get to this more about this a little later. Quality and pedigree of the management team. And fourth factor is the business processes and corporate governance. So let me talk to you more of these two other factors. quality and pedigree of the management team. So let's take the case of Jyoti Laboratories. Uh, just about 4 to 5 years back, Jyoti Laboratories was a single product company. It had got Ujala as one of its brands. And what they did as the criteria for growth is that they decided to take on the products of Henkel, which were on offer. Okay. At that time, the company was not in a position to take over that. They did not have the finances to take over that business. But the promoter put his neck on the line, pledged his shares, took over the business, and they identified a crack team of very, very reputable um managers or people who could run the business was put into place, and the management did not give and the management gave them the complete free hand to run that business. So what happened was that the people who were at the helm and running the business were of an extremely high quality and pedigree. They had got their KRS chalked out. They had their own historical precedent of being successful from whichever organizations that they had come from. And this, as you can see today, the stock is up nearly 3 to 4 times, and it is doing phenomenally well. So it is also not only knowing the promoter and the owner, but who is running the business and what kind of a quality and pedigree of the management team that is in place is important. Finally, what we talk about is business processes and corporate governance. See, if you do not have any processes in place, you know, it is going to be very, very difficult to scale up. You may be a very, very successful entrepreneur and doing everything on your own. But if you do not have a business process in place, you are guaranteed not going to be anywhere, because if decision making is going to be arbit and uh, and random, then things are not going to work out. Take the case of the Burger King, McDonald's. They actually have a Bible in place which is given to every store manager, and every possible situation that can occur has been uh, highlighted and targeted, and what kind of corrective action needs to be taken is in that book. There is no situation on this earth that the business has not gone through, has not been documented, and a resolution process put in place. So they have been so elaborate about it, and this explains the success of McDonald's to become a global giant in the quick service restaurant. And you will be surprised to know that during the carnage of the 2008 and 2009 period, it was one of the most or the one of the best performing businesses. Despite everything failing, these guys continue to do well, right? So this in essence is the nutshell of this slide, that when you are looking to pick a business to invest in, it is very important to know as to who's running the business, and uh, and it is as important as the fortunes of the business that you are investing in. So who are the promoters, who are the owners, what is their stake, skin in the game, are they managing the daily affairs, or is there a professional management in place? What is the quality of that professional management? Do they have business processes? Do they have corporate governance functions in place? And once you have satisfied yourself with all these factors, you should see uh, whether the promoter is extremely negative, and if the business is not doing well, then avoid that segment. And if you have a bad quality environment but you have a very good promoter, or you have a or you have a okay promoter with a great business prospect, these should be your areas where you should looking to be investing. Okay, now typically we have a number of different structures. So we have uh, markets and hierarchies, and we have firm networks. And within that, important to focus is on widely held companies, state-owned enterprises, and family-owned businesses. Now comes the question of, should you invest in state-owned businesses? So if you were to know that typically there is a statement that PSU stocks are generally to be avoided. Now, from where does this come? It primarily comes from the fact that the promoters who run the business, that is the government, right, uh, has known to give politics a higher handle and or higher favor than actually letting the business run in the most profitable manner. What happens is that the political interests of the regime at the helm of affairs has got interests which are in contrast to what is good for the company, right? So let's take the case of ONGC today. Okay, great business. It is a virtual monopoly for producing oil in the country, right? Uh, Probably there is nobody else who knows oil exploration in India as much as they know. They are practically there in every field of development uh, which has been throwing up oil for the country, but its prices gone nowhere, because what has happened is that the way the oil prices are going up, and there is a fear that the government may compromise on the business prospects, and to avoid any subsidy or having fiscal deficit ballooning up, to protect that, they might resort to the age-old method of uh, taxing the profits of these companies to achieve other motives. If you remember, uh, from the time immemorial of since 2004 till 2014, actually these companies didn't do that well, right? And that was primarily because of the case of the uh, uh, fiscal deficit uh, addressment being led to the profits of these companies, right? But once 2014 arrived, and when Modi came on board, he realized the importance of letting these businesses grow if India had to do well. And these companies did extremely well. All, in fact, HP, BP, IOC, they all did very well to a point, right? Until the government started meddling with their uh, affairs to, take profits from them. So uh, the moment that the elections were around the corner, and there is a fear that subsidy might increase, these PSU stocks, OMC companies have been severely battered down. Now, in India, almost 80% of the businesses are family owned, right? Uh, what happened is from 1950 to 1997, 92, until we actually went through reforms, bulk of the businesses were managed by few families out there, and they had got diverse interests. They were in different segments, so there was no real ownership of a particular business, and it was all dependent on what kind of a political connect that you had, uh, and because of these favors that you gave to these politicians, you received interest in kind from them, right? So during that time, uh, if you notice, a lot of businesses, once the economy opened, family run businesses kind of started collapsing, and many of them even disappeared. So it is important also to keep in mind that business structures, who are owning the group, which are the business groups, how they run these companies, and what competencies that they had to be in that business is equally important. Now let us take the example of top 20 business houses by groups of assets from the period 1950 till just about a couple of years ago. If you see, the Tatas have consistently remained the best uh, business house in the country for over 70 years. This is phenomenal. If you see, Birla also ranked close second behind them, and they were relegated to number three status. Then in the 1980s and 70s, when the Ambanis came over, they became the third largest group. Okay, from 2003 to 2008, as the stock market boomed, although the brothers separated, so we had Dhirubhai Ambani, and then you had the split between the brothers after they inherited the business. Uh, Nothing really came out very much, and both the groups continued to grow well because we had a rising tide of stock market boom, and all the businesses did well. But actually, when the global crack came and the axe hit the grind, what we saw is that the wheat was separated from the chaff. So Mukesh Ambani related company Reliance continued to build and grow on its own, while Anil Ambani's companies kind of started dwindling away. In fact, today, what has happened is, barring for Reliance Capital and its subsidiaries, and maybe to a lesser extent Reliance Infrastructure, all the other companies have got destroyed themselves. Right? They've all gone down the drain. Their businesses have no prospects and no investor ready to touch them with a barge pole. Typically, there is a saying in the market that the first generation builds the business, and by the time the third generation comes, it is that generation which kind of destroys the enterprise. Is it any coincidence that people like Madhu Kela and Sunil Singhania have left this company when the third generation has taken over? I am not saying that the third generation will not do wonders in this company, but when we have seen things slide and go and authoritarian still prevailing, I think there is a case for avoiding stocks relating to this group. Now let's look at some of the other groups and how they come perform. JK Singhania Group was the fourth largest group in the 90s. As I mentioned to you, uh, groups that run the Thappers, Mafatlals, and if you see in the 2016 list, these names just don't even feature out here. Okay. On the other hand, let us take the case of uh, other businesses which have thrived, right? So we come to the issue of transitioning from a family owned business to a promoter owned business. And what we have noticed is that companies which are about 100 to 150 crores and they are entrepreneur owned, they do well. But once they hit that figure of 150 crores and above, it is important for the promoter family to disengage partially from the business. So while you maintain control and overall, your second line of action, leadership, is a professional management. And as you grow beyond 500 crores, if you move over to a absolutely professional setup, then your business continues to thrive. So what is happening in this process is that you are building in competencies, you're getting people who can grow your organization, you're hiring talent which is best suited for your company and to scale up, and other factors which are very important for the growth of the company is delegation, getting young blood into the business, professional management, professional leadership teams. Take the case of the Mukesh Ambani Group. If you notice, at a very young age, the scions of the family are being incorporated in different roles in the organization to get them ready for business, right? Uh, let's take the case of a recent turnaround story called Kisan Moldings. Okay, that company was just not going anywhere. There were absolute problems, and leadership was clearly lacking. And the second generation, uh, Rishabh, who's the current MD, came on board, and he took ownership of the problem, addressed the issues on the board, and today, what you'll see, a company which was languishing for several years at 400 to 500 crore revenue is now taking wings, moving to a higher target of about uh, run rate of about 750 crores over the next year, and probably even hitting out to 1100 crores over the next 2 years. So we are seeing a young management come in, build the business, address the issues, identify the problems, right? And grow them. So Rishabh, being a very, very young person in his early 30s, if I may say, has he may not have the competencies, but for a their business of solvents, they got, which are similar to what Pidilite makes. They had hired a person from Pidilite to take over this subsidiary and grow that business. I wouldn't say a subsidiary, a business unit, and scale it up. So what happens is when you have young blood, professional management, and leadership coming all together and delegation happening, businesses really thrive. Now, another important issue to address is succession planning. So, if you do not have a successor in place, then how will the corporation survive? Right? So, it is very important to groom talent right from the point of uh, growth. Take the case of Berkshire Hathaway. Succession planning was part of the top leadership agenda for a number of years. And as both Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett are entering the golden age of their lives, the young blood is now taking over. The succession planning has been done, and the business transformation of decision making and investment uh, tracking is now shifting to a younger management, which has been carefully chosen over a period of time and who have been groomed well. You know, so this is an extremely important uh, aspect for the growth of a company. Now, let's understand openness to align with JVs, create alliances, uh, uh, grab global opportunities is definitely what separates agile, nimble managements from groups who are stuck up doing exactly what they do, right? But before I get into this, I just remembered a story of Infosys, which, if you notice, has been not doing well over the last few years. And generally, investors are preferring other more agile companies. In fact, if you see TCS and Infosys and compare a lot of the ratios between them, you'll notice that TCS far outranks Infosys. Now, in Infosys, after the erstwhile leaders kind of quit the company, the succession planning was not done in a correct manner. And just to revive the company, what they did is they brought in a leadership from outside, but the culture fit was not there. And this led to more trouble at the company and slower growth, right? But now Uh, Hopefully, things should revive now. And coming back to the question of openness to align with create JVs, uh, grab global opportunities, nobody comes more to mind than the Starlight Group. In fact, it is one group which is extremely diversified, right from all the commodities. You talk of fiber optic cable, you talk of the oil business, right? They've absolutely done well. They've done alliances where possible. They've availed of all global opportunities that they have. And another important factor which we all know but should not be less emphasized would be skin in the game, right? I remember one infrastructure company, IVRCL, where the promoters had a measly 8% stake. And that company today is not even decipherable, given the fact that infrastructure has seen one of the biggest booms ever since the Modi government came into play. So these are some of the factors that we were discussing. And I have now created a kind of a checklist that what you can undertake to identify a good promoter, and let's discuss each of these elements. So as I told you, skin in the game, what is your stake in the company will essentially tell you what you will do. Companies with a large promoter stake are obviously where the promoter's holding is dependent on that, uh, is a very, very plus point. Promoters with 75% holding, which is the maximum allowed, definitely to my mind score much, much high on this scale. Now, then we see what is the past experience of the management, right? Have they got the ability to do well? How have they may not be in the same business, they may be in diverse businesses, but how they well they have done. What are the precedents that they have set? What is the focus on the education, the research, the qualities of the professionals? We have seen these. What are the other business interests? Are they at are they at conflict with the existing interests of the company? Then next is the composition of the board. Okay, who are the people sitting on the board? Determines what kind of business opportunities and networking that they get to the table. Then corporate governance is a very important issue. Uh, it could not be highlighted more, right? We have discussed this in the past also. How are the companies? Are they promoter driven or professionally driven? So who's in the driver's seat? So take the case of HCL Tech, right? The company is entirely uh, professionally driven, right from the CEO. And take the case of the Burmans, take the case of the Munjals. Today they are all professionally driven companies where the issue of ownership and leadership are clearly segregated. Another important factor to see is the changes on the website. How is that changed over the years? Is it reflective of what the company does? How are they communicating with you? Because that will tell you as to the clarity of the vision and dream of the management. Coming to vision and dream, this itself, the vision statement, the mission statement, tell you uh, as to the direction of the team leading the company, what is their growth hunger, and uh, what kind of ambitions they have to achieve and realize their dreams. Then we are also looking at stakeholders. So the importance of institutional investors cannot be undermined as much. The more professional institutional managers own a company, tells you that things are going in the right direction. And especially in this, the specific name of large institutions and individual holders who have got a capability for identifying good stocks and um driving the growth helps. So when a Warren Buffett buys a stock, people do come and take notice of that, right? Isn't it? Then do these promoters participate in buyback? It is very important that promoters uh, uh, not participate in buyback. It shows their determination and stake in the game that they are willing to do a buyback without participating in it. This clearly shows that they believe in the future of the company. You know, then we also need to take a 5-year analysis for the long term, 8 quarters uh, of the holding pattern, of shareholding. So, how has the shareholding changed? Are the promoters constantly increasing their stake? Are people in the know, like employees and other people, exiting the business? You know, so these are all the things that we need to identify and study to make an analysis of how the promoter quality is shaping up. Okay, then we need to understand the body language, goals and strategy of the company. uh, how sticky is the management of the company? So is are there frequent changes happening on the board? So let's take the case of TCS, Wipro and Infosys. Infosys has seen huge turnaround in its top leadership. Wipro has seen massive changes happening at their management cadre level, at business head level. And take the case of TCS, barring for one change, you know, uh, where Chandrasekhar was promoted to the Tata Sons board. There is the hierarchy line has been pretty sticky. And talking of succession planning, it is foremost in the Tata Group, and it is done up to, I think, 3 levels lower. You know, so succession planning is done from internal side, not only for the immediate succession, but also future successions are also people who are promising candidates also groom for future succession, right? Then we look at promoter pledge and reasons for it. So promoter pledging his shares is not necessarily a bad thing. Promoters do pledge shares maybe to increase their stake in their own business. You know, that is a significant. Uh, or are they pledging their shares to pursue some unrelated diversifications? You know, these are the factors that need to be highlighted. When a promoter pledges shares, what is the percentage of the pledge and for how long has it been done? So, if we were to go back to a case of Jyoti Laboratories, the promoter had pledged a large portion of his shares, but that he had done to buy more shares of his own company. So these kind of reasons show absolute belief of the promoter in uh, taking his enterprise from one level to a totally different level, and hence promoter pledge, while it should be scrutinized minutely, is not necessarily a negative thing. So if we were to sum up what we saw today, is the fact that promoter quality and business quality are the factors that we look out when selecting a stock. Okay, if you have a bad business and a good promoter, these should be looked at. Whereas you might have a good promoter, whereas you might have uh, a great business and a not so good promoter, but who's looking to make the change. you know so these are the areas where we want to be in, because there is inefficient pricing of the future, and this is where maximum money can be made, not only from earnings potential upgrades, but also from the re-rating of the business. Then we have seen how businesses have crashed, have survived, and we have looked at the factors uh, that are required for running a business. We've spoken about transitioning from a family oriented to a promoter owned business, delegation, succession planning, openness to create JVs, alliances, tapping global opportunities, and skin in the game. And then we saw what was the checklist for identifying a good promoter. So I hope you have enjoyed this small and very, very focused presentation. Just to add to this one more point, I will talk to you about scuttlebutt. So if we take the case of Manpasand beverages, it was from their corporate books you could have never made out that they were indulging in malpractices. But if you had done a scuttlebutt and verified the claims of the management that when they said that they were the largest brand in Rajasthan and none of their products were available there, you could very, very be certain that something was wrong. Or as the one of the investors of 2.2 Capital had pointed out, that when he did a check of um, the IT spend, and when it came to 20 lakh per employee, his eyes opened, and that was a ground for him to do further digging and come to realize that these are all shady scams going around. So, if we do this kind of analysis and place equal importance on the business prospects and also due diligence of the promoter, then to my mind, you definitely do have a great multi-bagger in the making. And if you would like to learn how to become multi-bagger stock ideas, then I have the perfect course for you. And the good news is on July 15th, we start off with a second batch of the master course in picking multi-bagger stock ideas. And to give you a brief about this course, it's conducted online. Recordings are available. Hence, you do not miss any of your lectures. And they're as good as the classes in session. Uh, the class runs for a period of 9 weeks. There are 2 sessions per week, and each session is of 2 hours. Okay, these sessions are typically held on a Thursday and a Saturday. Thursday 7:30 to 9:30 p.m. So you don't miss the lectures on a busy day. And on a Saturday, people do have half days. Some of them have holidays. So there we have a 2:30 to 4:30 slot in the afternoon, and these 18 sessions are broken down into three distinct categories. Classes 1 to 4 uh, give you an introduction to the proprietary 12 dimensions investment toolbox that I've created. Okay. Then classes 5 to 12 is, in this we do analysis of 8 stocks in 8 different sectors, and we will also be conducting a con call with the management. This is not a promise, which is on subject to availability, but this will definitely give you a flavor of doing live analysis. And classes to 13 through 18 will take over various aspects of portfolio building, developing screeners, data mining and management, managing investor psychology. To my mind, this is the biggest challenge that we all face. And the last class would be an open session where all queries would be addressed. Now, during the class, it will be conducted through the webinar route as we are doing today. And along with this, all your queries will be addressed on WhatsApp. So although the communication is one way, it is yet interactive because your queries are being addressed as you raise questions on WhatsApp. The fees are 15,000 plus 18% GST. These are non-refundable. So please make up your mind before uh, paying. And as I told you, video recordings is available for offline viewing. This will be available for a period of a year, and PDF notes will be provided. And if you would like to have more info, you can WhatsApp me on 7021216247, or you can email me at schoolofmarketstudies@gmail.com. So this is Vinit Bolinchka here, signing you off on this rainy day, and hope you have enjoyed this webinar and that it has enlightened you and helped you to add one more uh, tool to your trading arsenal, and that is the analysis of the promoter or the owner of the business. Thank you, good night, and have a great trading day tomorrow.